Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you want to take your shooting experience to the next level, then check out Coltac gear for 100% made in America products. Coltac manufactures specialty gear designed for long-range shooting, hunting, and other tactical applications. From their support bags, suppressor covers, shooting mats, and a whole lot more, Coltac is creating tough, durable, and innovative gear for both civilian and professional markets. Go to coltac.com to see all that they have to offer. That's cole-tac.com. If you are looking to get a new rifle or build your own, look no further than Kelbley's. Kelbley's actions and rifles have a higher level of accuracy and hold 92 world records set on either one of their rifles or rifle actions. Whether you're looking for an ultralight mountain rifle or wanting to compete in precision rifle shooting, Kelbley's has you covered. Go to kelbley.com to find out more or give them a call as their customer service is the best. That's KELBLY.com. Kelbley's. If you're looking to take your hunting to another level, there's no better way to do it than by subscribing to onX Hunt. If you want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, onX is the #1 GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. If you want to know more about onX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt or download their app today for a free trial. If you are wanting to become more accurate and deadly with your shooting, one of the best things you can do is upgrade your trigger with a Timney. Timney triggers are 100% made in America and have been since their founding, providing a crisp, reliable, and repeatable trigger break every time. I'll be shooting Timney triggers in my guns this year, and I hope you'll join me in shooting the world's finest trigger. Go to timneytriggers.com to get yours today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Today's episode is one that is really cool, really special, and follows along a guest that we had on the show roughly like 4 years ago. And we are touching back to see what type of progress has been made and reconnecting on her journey and her story as she has progressed on this path of self-reliance to ultimately sharing her gifts and her desires to connect with nature, the outdoors, and return to a grounding with this universe and sharing that love and passion with everyone else that she encounters. So without further ado, today we have the owner of Wildkind Outdoors, Jess Caldwell. She is a powerhouse of a human being and really, really special in everything that she does. So without further ado, Jess, thank you so much for joining for another episode of the show.
Oh, thanks, Johnny. I can't even believe it's been that long. I actually listened to that podcast we did so long ago. I think it was the second podcast I had ever done. So thank you for taking that leap with me. And I remember I said so many times. So I'm hoping I've evolved my podcast skills and that I have way less ums in our talk tonight.
Well,
But thank you. Thanks for that really cool introduction.
oh,
You're
my
so
my
kind.
pleasure. And for all the listeners who haven't caught that episode years ago, you found yourself in a lifestyle of prepping and being a prepper for the next generation, or like for ultimate like worst scenario, and that led you down a path, like almost a dark path, correct?
Yeah, like, well, just maybe, I needed to redirect the path,
Ah,
because it was very much, a fear-driven, uh, act of prepping for the worst, and I've had an evolution since then, but I still am very much somebody who teaches and supports and coaches for preparedness and self-reliance and resilience training, so it's just evolved to have a different energy to it, different feel.
okay, love that. Let's talk about that. Let's break that down because we're going to be getting into all this and everything that you're doing with Wildkind Outdoors. But what's the difference between being prepared for the worst with good energy or good intentions versus being prepared for the worst with a fear mentality?
Yeah, okay. There's, like, so much to get into with
We're
preparedness,
diving right
right?
in on it.
So, let's go. Okay, so let me just give the listeners just a little bit of a background of the type of preparedness that I was doing, gosh, 10 years ago.
Hmm.
So, my husband at the time built underground bunkers for a living. We'll just have a pregnant pause there on that one. Pretty
Yeah.
hardcore, right? And with that, I sold emergency supplies and also long-term food storage. And I was somebody that for those who wanted to build an underground bunker, they'd come to me and I would talk to them about how they're going to stock their everything they need to stock their bunker, 2 years worth of potentially anything they needed to live underground and come out and start again.
Hmm.
So that is the lifestyle that I lived. I had all of that, the bunker, the stuff, the gear, the equipment, the 2 years worth of food supply, and everything you could imagine.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, however, I think the first night I had this awakening was that I had 2 young kids at the time, and I was living in Washington State, and we crossed the river over to Oregon to stay with my parents for the night. And I had this deep anxiety of being away from our property because the property was the safe haven. It was everything I'd been prepping for since having young kids.
Hmm.
And I had this unbelievable fear of something happening, an earthquake, the grid going down. Something was going to happen when I was away with my boys. And I woke up in the middle of the night with almost what you would call a panic attack, anxiety attack.
Yep. Yep.
And I ended up grabbing my boys, packing them up, and driving back home in the middle of the night, leaving my parents, wondering what was the heck was wrong with me, and getting back. And since then, in that time, I had canceled vacations because I was checking solar flare activity and I was checking, just these different events that could potentially happen, and I would say our life kind of tanked in terms of just living with aliveness, living with a sense of adventure, living for the now moment instead of this what if all these things
Hmm.
could happen. And so that level of prepping was incredible. I mean, I had a lot of knowledge. We lived off grid. I had a food production garden and canned all my own food and was truly living that lifestyle, rotating food in. I was grinding my own wheat berries
Wow.
and baking my own bread. So it was like really hardcore, which is awesome. And these are some pretty neat skills actually to be more in touch with the land and
Yes.
where food comes from. So all of that excites me. I love that stuff. But the energy behind where I was coming from was distorted. And in that time, I had friends that were preppers, I had people in the community, and I had myself going through things like illness. I developed my own concerning illness. It was actually a lump in my throat that I thought I had some devastating something going on with me. Turns out it was anxiety. It was an anxiety bump. There's a name for it, a medical name for that. But it was just a check that something is off with me. And I had plenty of friends who were living the prepper lifestyle, but died suddenly, had terminal illnesses. I've lost people in my life. And so what
Hmm.
it comes back to is these are all great things to be prepared, and also realizing that the more reliant we are thinking that the government's going to show up with food, water, everything we need, if in terms of if natural disaster or you name the circumstance, that would be a really like low band vision of like our time here on earth and our sense of what's real.
Hmm.
And so I think, I balance that line of like, okay, do all this cool stuff for the right reasons, but also how are you feeling in your being right now in terms of, are you a joyous being? Do you have a life that you absolutely love? Because we're all going to die. And it could be one way or the other. It could be this, it could be that, but our time here on earth is so precious. And that
Yeah.
to me is where I have really put my energy into, where nature connection has been a big piece of my healing from that time,
Yeah.
learning the skills of humanity, how to be more self-reliant in the rhythms of nature, in nature's cycles and nature's gifts. That has become the healing. And I have witnessed firsthand that stuff that you package away and buy is sometimes awesome, but it can also go away. It's just stuff. A divorce happened. I no longer am married to the bunker builder. I no longer have my bunker. I
Right.
no longer have all
Right.
2 years worth of food storage because things happen, change happens. I've known people who've lost all their stuff because of divorce, because of moves, because of food going bad, you name it. So I'm really understanding that in this midlife state that I am in, that our sense of well-being, our sense of aliveness and living a good life is the focus and how we become more self-reliant and build community resilience and living the life that I know at the end of my days when it's done time, I feel really good about
Mhm.
my decisions, about my path, about how I've served, how I've helped, how I've affected others, my family. That's way more important to me than like how much stuff I have on a shelf,
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things I want to connect the dots on and everything that you shared, and a lot of that it goes back to that original question of like, how do we be self-reliant and be prepared without it being fear-driven, but then at the same time, like if it's our time to die or our time to go or whatever, then really what is the point? And I'm not trying to go ultimate nihilism where it's like nothing matters. But connect the dots or the train of thought in that progression because it's easy to go to the absolute extremes, right? Like you were at one and it led to illness in your body. And now you've learned to connect and be grateful for the moment and be present in the moment and enjoy the process, which is something that a lot of people forget. Like they just want that end destination. We got to get there. We got to get there rather than enjoying the journey. So how does the fear disappear? How
Mm.
does it become more of a gift, a blessing?
Mhm, and that's actually the journey is what I would maybe even consider a spiritual journey, something that integrates me that I'm more than my physical existence here on earth, that I have, that my contribution, I'm like a spiritual being having a human experience. For me,
Right.
that kind of resonates with me that this isn't, that all of my time here matters and all of how I am living my life matters.
Yes.
Stuff is stuff, no matter how you look at it. It can come, it can go. That sense of impermanence, that's you could even consider that like a Buddhist concept
Right.
of impermanence, of being able to take away, our need to have stuff and our when things don't go our way or life sends you a hook. It's like, how are we handling those moments and investing ourselves into our kind of mind body spirit connection
Mhm.
because we've seen people with stuff act really you know that have poor reactions to their reality,
Yeah.
and we've seen people with no stuff, just wandering travelers be the sages who show up and support or give a hand and just are completely in contentment.
Right.
So there's no right or wrong path. I mean, I truly think every path is unique, and whatever we put our energy into can be really creative and really supportive. I remember, I think I even mentioned this years ago, that I had a mentor for a time, Bruce McGlenn, who's part of Human Nature Hunting.
I had him on this spring.
Oh, no
Yeah,
way.
back in April we had him on as a guest.
Oh, he's fabulous. He's just a great human. And I had partnered with his company, Wildkind Outdoors had partnered with his company for some events in Washington State. And so I got to know him a little bit through those events. And I remember he said to me once, I asked him, it was right during COVID stuff. And I was like, what are you doing in this time to, consider what's happening all around us? And he was like, Jess, I just prefer to travel lightly. I invest in knowledge. I invest in my connection to self and source and family and I travel lightly. And those like that stuck with me where I was like, travel lightly, because that has some pretty profound meanings, whether you are like talking about the physical
Mhm.
or even just talking about the weight and the burdens we carry
Yeah.
as humans and how we're going to lighten that load a little bit for ourselves to live more simply and to live more harmoniously for our well-being.
Yeah, a couple things I want to talk about. So, first one I'm going to hit on is something I actually read on social media today, and it was on the platform X, formerly known as Twitter. Absolutely, if I like social media, it's that platform over anything else. But it said, why is it? It was a person posing a question. It's like, why is it that the people who are unemployed and live at home with their parents are the ones that are the happiest and the most knowledgeable about the universe? And
Whoa.
I thought it was very apropos to what you just said, the whole like travel lightly and invest in knowledge, because ultimately, like you said, a divorce could happen and everything could split in half or be gone, right? And so the reality in which you know and you live in, day out, that you're building can just be taken from you like that.
Mhm,
But there's secrets to the universe that are out there. And it's like, well, why are these people that, quote unquote, live at home in the basement or don't have jobs or unhireable? How is it that they're so philosophical and knowledgeable about the world? And it's like, because they have time to put into it. And the time aspect, instead of being a slave to the financial system, which guilty, I hate it, but it's I actually had this conversation with my child, my middle son, last night on a walk around the neighborhood. He's like, why can't we just stay at home with you? I was like, well, ultimately that'd be my goal. Like either I stay home and mom makes enough money for me to raise you and teach you and homeschool you, or I make enough money and she gets to do that. And Soul Seekers is growing and it's been a blessing. And I was like, well, maybe we just, you know, do Soul Seekers. I teach you guys how to run cameras and how to create media and marketing and all this stuff. And then we just live out of a trailer. He's like, oh, that'd be cool. So when would we return home? I was like, yeah, but that's the thing. Is like we could not afford the home and that lifestyle at the same time. So not casting shade or shame on anybody who chooses. But these are the tough decisions that we get to make. Like, if time is limited, if you said we're all going to die, then where are we building our treasures, right?
mhm.
And,
Yeah,
and that is, it's like a gut punch to me every single time.
yeah,
And I had this
yeah,
walk last night. And so he's like, why can't soul seekers make more money? And I was like, well, I'm working on it, buddy. And
yeah.
it's just the simpleness of a child's mind is the beauty of this
Mhm,
world,
mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
And things, it's challenging that we've created so many constructs of modern society
Hmm.
that are a wheel of, uh, perceived function that is so dialed into the wheel that it's so hard to get out of. It's
Yeah.
so challenging.
Yeah.
I had the you and I've talked before about this, but my kids are grown up and out of the home now. So I have this new ability and freedom to simplify, downsize,
Yeah.
not have a home mortgage. I'm basically shifting to van life this year. So there is a new freedom and it comes with inconveniences for sure. I mean, I have friends who are like, "How do you live the way you live?" And I understand there's inconveniences with some of the choices that I've made to
Hmm.
simplify,
Hmm.
but the way I live also creates a lot of freedoms. I travel lightly. I
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
been my mission for the last few years.
There was I think Dave Baronio shared this with me, ironically, and because we're all in alignment, our thoughts.
Totally.
Dave's been a great guest on the podcast before and a good friend of both of ours. But he took a picture of a poster that was framed on a wall, and in the poster it had little boxes, and it was weeks of your life, up
Mm,
to 100 years of life, and each week you mark the box, and it goes to show like, whoa, time is limited. Here we go. Like there's there's less unmarked boxes than there are, or vice versa. And it's like that one hit me hard also because it's like, okay, well, we always have these dreams and hopes, these ideas of tomorrow, next year, next summer, next fall, next hunting season, or
Mm.
when I just get life gets a little less busy, right?
Yeah.
But we're not
Yeah, we
prompt.
are made up of our choices, like, in this we are choice to choice, day by day, what the present moment is presenting to us, and sometimes what's ahead is bold moves. I mean, there is no doubt a brave, bold move required to change your life into something that is maybe uncomfortable,
Hmm.
but creates more ease or more freedoms or more there that is a leap for sure,
Yeah,
in this day and age.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm with you.
So that ties into the second part of what I wanted to say is, and I'm actually going to be recording this Thursday night for all you listeners. We're going to be releasing a spiritual episode
Mm,
coming out because with it being soul seekers, yes, we're talking about hunting all the time. We're talking about recruitment, mentorship, transforming lives, and the next generation. But at the same time, it's like the spiritual aspect of life and really understanding that. Well, Jess has been a guest on my brother's podcast before, and I'm going to be bringing my brother on to talk about spirituality and the connection. And you mentioned, it's kind of almost like a Buddhist mentality of letting go and living in the present and less is more type thing. Well, I saw an interesting. I almost need to asterisk this for a second because it's a little conspiracy woo woo that I'm about to share. But
sweet.
yeah,
Let's
right,
go.
like woo. So last night I'm scrolling Twitter and I see this post talking about how Tartaria, for all listeners who are not familiar with Tartaria, it was a country, had a map or had a nation flag and everything, and it's in older books, but they've completely removed it from modern day knowledge and society. And so there's a lot of talk that Tartaria, in the time of Tartaria, was the millennial reign of Christ that we talk about in the Christian narrative, like Jesus is going to return, and then there'll be the millennial reign of Christ. And then after 1,000 years of millennial reign of Christ, then Satan is released back on to the earth for a time and season, and then ultimately, boom, gone. Like that is the end of the story as far as Revelations is concerned in the Bible. Well, it's the post about Tartaria said, if Tartaria already happened and we're currently living in the time and season of Satan's reign on earth, then that means that you are one of the survivors to make it through, whether you physically or your lineage made it through to this time and season, this period of life. And I was like, whoa,
Hmm,
that is a
interesting.
very
Okay.
very interesting thing. So then I was like, okay, my brother, who we're going to get into a spiritual episode soon, we've talked about our trauma with our childhood, and he ended up sharing with me about a soul contract with our father, our our biological father here on the earth, about how he went into a ceremony of healing to heal trauma from childhood and ended up meeting our father's soul in that experience, and that his soul, my father's soul, was sad and had a contract that said to him, like, I had to be who I was so that you could also be who you are,
Mhm,
which is beautiful, but very, very tough to wrap your head around. And so, how I'm connecting all this to this idea of self-reliance and worrying about the now versus worrying about the future, or all that, is it made me think about whether our life is predestined and
mhm,
whether or not we actually get to create each and every moment, or we had an opportunity in our youth to create each and every moment. But once we've made that choice, that hard choice, kind of what you mentioned earlier, now and I'll use the term have to, right? Not just get or blessed to, but have to walk out the continuation of that choice made in our past.
hmm. I've asked a lot of questions for myself of just what does it all mean? Why
Hmm.
am I here? There's a lot that I don't have the answers to, and I'm so comfortable with that. I really am because there's things that then would just be totally out of my control.
Yeah.
But I still have this autonomy to be like, I wake up in the morning and I choose. I choose what what this life is about for me, and I also have to overcome that, um, that lethargy to just kind of give up and say, "This is all out of my control," or
Hmm.
this or that, or I'm a victim to life, or these things. This is gonna circle back around to a little bit to preparedness
Hmm.
because I am I'm I have no judgments on what people are doing with their lives. That is just not even my role to say, "You should be doing this," or "You should be doing that." But what I've made a decision to do is that, when I didn't have the money to buy 2 years worth of food storage post-divorce, then and I had this kind of just understanding that during my own uncertainty of where the world's going and what's happening, I started to invest in skills, in nature-based skills, in earthing skills, in skills that matter, that has evolved humanity from the beginning to where we are now.
Hmm.
Humans have always been able to gather in community, collect and harvest food together, make fire, make home, find water. Like, it comes down to the elements,
Hmm.
that this is a humanity's job, is for their very survival, is to know and work with the earth's elements for a sense of well-being and a sense of preservation.
Yeah.
These are just really basic concepts. Now, with fire, we've been sitting in community around fire since the beginning of time, because and fire has brought different things, everything from safety to ritual to prayer to dance to song to, fire brings people together.
Hmm.
And so the thing is about right now, all these people in modern society are very much distancing themselves from the elements and from core truths of what it means to be survive and to be in a relationship with the world, the natural world.
Hmm.
And when when I didn't have money to buy stuff, investing in skills was the next best thing, because at least I felt that I had, if no matter where I am in the world, whether I'm traveling by myself in a car, something goes sideways with our world that is not the way we know it to be in this current moment,
Yep.
I have the mind and the body and the physicality and the skills to go lend a helping hand, to be able to contribute to what it's like if things aren't happening for us, but we need to actually take care of things for ourselves, create safety for ourselves and for others, or a sense of preservation or a sense of food procurement. I invested in skills. Some people don't have the ability to do that, whether it's a physical thing or a work thing, because we all live in this current modern world. But maybe they do have food storage. Maybe they have invested in using their money and their resources. They've created investments in community gardens or food storage or alternative energy or ways to regenerative farming or things that like renew
Hmm.
and add to our human nature, which is to grow, to provide, to feed. And so that's another cool way that that person is representing in the world. None of it's one way better than the other. But I'm all about, at this stage of the game, community resilience, in that we're not meant to survive alone, that we're meant to help support. I mean, I know from a soul's journey,
Uh-huh.
I actually had someone say to me at one point, if shit hits the fan, or these words that we use,
Yeah.
I'll just go, I know where resources are, I'll just go take them. And I was like, I know there's organizations out there who are organizing, who have, I mean, literally weapons, everything
Yeah.
that they will take from the weak, they will take
Hmm.
from others. And that's the plan. That's actually the like survive plan. Well, since I come from a soulful place of what my time on earth matters, and that I believe there is life after death, and so I'm in a state of what is this lifetime mean for me?
Hmm.
the last thing I'm gonna do in my time here on earth is pillage and steal from others, even if it's a desperate act at end of life. I mean, I would just rather be not here and say I lived a good life and I served,
Mm,
than my plan being to, like, take from others who prepared. But what I can do is, if I'm traveling and I don't have all my gear and my stuff, I can walk into a situation and say I have two hands to help, and I'm not here to take.
yeah.
I just That's like a personal philosophy that I live with. And yes, desperate times and desperate people do desperate things,
Hmm.
but that's totally out of my control. And that is why we have spiritual trainings, is to develop the human while we have the ability to do that without it being dire. It's like, while we have this time here, let's really develop the soulful self and what our mission is here on earth. And for those people who are preparing for changes, which is, I think, a really responsible, reasonable thing to do, even if, whether it's gardening, growing food, talking about regenerative farming, permaculture, food resources, hunting,
Hunting. Yep.
foraging, fishing. All these things are us being proactive about our food rather than just saying food arrives to us by Uber Eats. I mean,
Mm,
there's like this really, that is a disconnect. And that is something that's concerning if we don't have a balance of how are we producing,
yeah.
how are we adding to knowing how to harvest food? And that seems like an important thing to
To
check into.
to interject, and I love everything that you shared right there. To interject, some Native American beliefs say that animals will give themselves to humans in hunting, and that kind of goes along with the whole food just showing up at Uber Eats. Like, uh,
I go into ceremony and then the Uber Eats arrives and the food is abundant.
no, but yeah, exactly. The idea of, like, set an intention, and I need food, we need food, going out into nature and connecting and being humble and asking for whatever is meant to come your way, that's the life that you're supposed to take.
Well,
uh,
I think there's like almost, you could say, we are either being consumers or producers
mhm,
or somewhere in the balance of that. And so we are all consumers. I mean, that's the world we live in. But if we're not balanced in how we produce to balance out consuming,
mhm,
we're just going to eat ourselves up here with consumption.
yeah,
And as a society, as a modern society,
yeah.
because we just rely
I
on
like the way I
food
like
to
the way you
survive.
put that. And talking about food, if we're talking specifically about food, there's the people that draw their belief system off the Bible, or that God, a God, the God, however, whatever religion or perception of God that you pull from, that you are a listener of this podcast, is that God is the creator, the ultimate creator, and that in the Bible it says if we are made in his image, then we are co creators. The Bible doesn't say we're co-creators. It says we are made in his image. So if we're made in his image, then we're made to be a creator. And if we are living our true purpose, then we are creating, and then that balances out the consumption that you were talking about.
Mhm. That's really similar. Like, I do believe that we are creators and we are here to shine in our special light, our special way, whatever. We all have kind of a, a special just thing that lights us up. And when we're lit up, we light the rest of the world up with us shining very brightly.
Yeah.
And that creative energy is, I know it gets dulled down when we are just feeling stuck, when we are numb and 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 in the wheel of lifelessness. So,
Yeah.
there is a path out. There is. It sometimes requires bold choices and living a different way. But I mean, you've also, your family made a big bold move by even moving,
Yeah.
into, I mean, that was a bold decision.
It's
But
phenomenal. I don't regret it ever.
exactly, exactly. And sometimes we make these bold decisions for our families and for ourselves to create more positive change, really evaluate the lifestyle and
Uh-huh.
say, is this am I here doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or am I just absolutely drained and at the end of the day feeling lifeless and sucked dry of energy? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, being a food producer of some kind, or a water gatherer, or a in relationship with nature in a way that is reciprocal, is a special. It's as primal as it gets, because that's
Yes.
our core humanity is meant to be in that relationship.
Well, in this podcast, we constantly talk about the transformation through primal adventure. Like, that's the whole concept of why I am so adamant about spreading the gospel of hunting, right? Like, not everyone needs to be a hunter, but everyone needs to support hunting because
Mhm.
everyone benefits from it, right? Like,
Yeah,
regardless of how
right.
connected you are to hunting, you'd be like, oh, I'm so removed. I'm anti hunting. Like, yeah, but you're still connected to hunting because you wouldn't be alive today without the people who have procured food for you.
Yeah, and in it, as someone who teaches survival and somebody who teaches wild food procurement, and for somebody who teaches preparedness and community resilience, truly looking into the face of where does my food come from, and if if this grocery store was not available for me right now and the shelves were empty,
Hmm.
let's get humble real quick about food.
Yeah.
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 Real quick. Real quick. Okay. So that brings me to my next question I want to ask you. In 4 years ago, when we recorded a podcast, you just got done shooting your very first deer. And that
Mhm.
that was a major moment in the journey of self-reliance. How is hunting, or yeah, I guess a two-part question. How has hunting impacted your self-reliance and this idea of wild kind outdoors? And also, do you feel like you have actually made it to I am a hunter
Mm.
status?
Well, let's see here. Couple projections there of what to talk about. So that was my first. That was an experience with my compound bow,
Yep.
and it was fantastic that year. I gave food to that was my Christmas gift to everybody in my family, was that meat. So that was a really special moment in time, and back then, I was somebody who didn't have any of these skills. I wasn't raised by a father or grandfather who took me hunting or fishing. This was all new to me,
Hmm.
and so this in a very short window of time, 5.5, 6 years, I was a marketing director who put her heels on every day and went to work and shopped at the grocery store, to losing my job because of of the 2020 stuff going on,
Hmm.
and being a single mom saying, I need to know how to do stuff, and I need to know how to be human again. And so for me, it was a multifaceted path of rewilding.
Hmm.
So I had zero skills, and every single week wanted to learn something to create a sense of nature connection and resilience within myself. And that meant learning how to shoot a bow, learning, harvesting my first deer, learning how to fish, going fishing, learning how to process a roadkill, which I
Yep.
did.
Yep.
So, I that was roadkill Christmas. That was a whole different year where everybody got roadkill Christmas meat. But I and then also learning some of the more primitive skills on trapping, and also foraging, learning about wild plants. So you're asking a question like, am I a hunter? I don't, that's maybe a philosophical question, because I haven't shot an animal since that time.
Okay.
But I've also been full time a single mom entrepreneur who has been building a business out of, and took off the chains of my job, and have been living without a home. I sold my house, living from friends to friends, just now buying a van, and saying I'm never going back to that world. And so everything I do has to align with creating work for myself, creating momentum to grow the business. I did put in tags to hunt, but didn't draw a tag a couple 2 years ago in a couple of different states.
Mhm.
And I've also switched over to shooting a longbow. So now I shoot a longbow, and if the next time I hunt, which I'm hoping will be this fall in Washington for blacktail, it will be with my longbow. And
Wow.
that just feels like the next thing for me, and something really special, and really, again, a very primal feeling to just take away all the mechanics and go into the field and have that opportunity if it presents itself.
Yeah.
And, but, do I procure food in lots of different ways? Yeah, I'm clamming, I'm fishing, I'm foraging, I'm trapping, and I'm also studying permaculture and harvesting rabbits. And, there's just, to me, I've been a little bit of everything,
Mhm.
and deeply support hunting.
Yeah.
It's something it's something that I feel very strongly about. I've had different instructors come into Wildkind Outdoors to teach hunting, to talk about it, to share why it's important for these skills to continue on, and for advocacy around why this is such an important topic,
Right.
is to keep that alive within us, our primal nature to procure food.
Yeah.
And yay, the hunters in my life, I've been very blessed that I have friends, and I have dear ones that go out and hunt, and then they share food with me, they share meat with me, and that's been a wonderful part of my life sustenance, is knowing that there are men and women out there who are this is very much their thing. Um, and they share that with me, and so I support it, I love it, I teach it, or at least bring in the right people to advocate
Yeah.
for it through my company. And would I love to hunt more? Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
but I also can't hire a guide, and I don't that's not in my reality right now.
Right.
And if there was opportunities, I went, out with, Courtney with her outdoor journey, and we went on a bird hunt, and so I got to participate in that and have that experience. So I guess I could say I have done
So,
various things.
you've
It's
been
it's
hunting, so
different
that's
from big game.
I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things, the misconceptions that hunting is only big game,
Right, yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
it's
And I've been training on my slingshot.
ooh, hey now.
So, small game slingshot, and
Watch out, the wrist rocket coming in.
yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine's awesome. It has fiber optics. It's actually pretty, like, stealth and cool.
No, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so one of the things that I find I have a interesting connection with human beings with is the fact that in a consumer space, I used to work at REI.
Mm,
REI is known as a very granola store, right? Like hikers, bird watchers, backpackers, outdoorsy people, but not hunters. And that there's a clear, strong, abrasive division between those and people that hunt. And people that
mm,
hunt also do those activities,
mhm, mhm,
but those people that do those activities might not hunt or might not even
mhm.
support hunting. So if you use the term and labels are so can be so
Labely.
destructive, label yeah, like, we're going to speak in labelese here for a second. Is this idea of, you have these people that consider themselves outdoorsy or granola. And here you are teaching survival skills and primitive self reliance skills that the majority of people that from the outside perspective looking in, sign up for those courses are super granola people. So,
I know, and I love them, and I welcome them. Here's the thing, I'm a bridge. And we need that,
yeah.
because if there are people, and that is like, I love granola too. So we have to, like, remove labels,
Uh huh.
like, that divide us, because most of the people who are coming through what we might term the REI version of getting into the outdoors, they're often some of the people who are paying for my courses,
Hmm.
because they want to go deeper into wild places, but their only introduction is through, they're city dwellers who have the opportunity to go hiking on the weekends. They work, they get to go out on the weekends, and so there has to be a way in, a doorway, a threshold
Yeah.
to say, that if they're wanting to take it to the next step, they might come to a wilderness survival class. When they're in a wilderness survival class and they're with me, they're going to be welcomed, and that's not going to be met with judgment.
Hmm.
And they're going to also get an introduction into what I call holistic survival, which is about us in from a broader perspective, understanding where we came from as humans, and that the whole point of survival is to realize our connection to food, our connection to water, our connection to community, to and the elements. And with that comes the introduction of where is our food coming from.
Mm.
And so, in a survival situation, if you are spending the night in the woods, and next thing you know, you got to spend 2 weeks in the woods, 3 weeks in the woods because you are in a survival situation, I can promise you that food of any kind, animal food, will be a point of sustenance that is a gift. And if for those people who've ever done plant medicine, what's incredible about plant medicine is I have had some incredible experiences of realizing that there is a connection with animals that is kindred in nature, but it's not "don't eat me." It's actually a love story of like the food chain,
Mm.
and how one connects the other, and how life on Earth actually has a beautiful continuity. And humans have always been eating, in reference to the food chain,
Hmm.
animals. And so, anyway, if these people come to my classes, they have such an I have never been met with conflict on this conversation. In fact, I am seeing more and more people take intro to hunting classes for people who've never hunted before. They didn't grow up with it. They have zero connection to it, and they're like, "Sign me up. I would love to learn how to do this." But there's just not an easy way to step into it if you didn't grow up with it. We've talked about this before, that mentorship
Yeah.
that's needed, and non-judgmental mentorship,
Mm.
because someone who's never done that before, who wants to take that step of like, "Okay, I want to take a class," if they come in, they have to have the right mentor who's also not gonna meet them with judgment.
Hmm.
That's like,
Yeah.
"Welcome to be out here. We are outdoor nature lovers together, and together we're going to deepen that relationship." And hunting gives us a deepening of that relationship.
Yeah. So
So,
true.
though, I mean, if someone was like anti-hunting, like anti-hunting in a very like visceral kind of uh
Spiteful way, like
yeah, I just doubt they would even I
sign
doubt
up.
they'd even be coming and taking a class like anything I offer,
Yeah.
because I think they're not even in touch at all with nature. I mean, like, truly, it's like there's a real disconnect there,
Yeah.
and that actually comes from being okay up here and being centered in here, and some people, there's so much dysfunction and mental illness and disassociation, and so that's
Yeah.
kind of a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question then, because this is something that I actually have never shared on a podcast. So forgive me if I stumble over my words a little bit on this, because I've thought about this as I've dove into the spiritual aspect of hunting and the reverence of nature and God being in his creation, right? Like, kind of think of the movie Avatar, and we're all connected and this living thing that's allowed us to survive. Is I see this is where I'm stumbling over my words because I'm struggling so much on this concept. Is I actually can see where people would want to be a vegan because they respect the life of a living creature so much that they like revere it, and like, how dare you take its life. But then and I used but then, not and, specifically because but then you are taking the life of a living plant, right? Like, that's living. So talking with Robbie Kroger of Blood Origins, I spoke a little bit about this with him one time. He's like, "Well, plants don't have souls. Plants aren't don't have like that spirit in them." And I was like, Okay. I mean, I kind of see where you're at, but I don't know. Do you you're kind of picking
Mhm,
up what I'm
totally.
saying? Like,
I can go all in on this, and actually, I love Robbie's great. Went to one of the movie showings in Denver that they put on and then took him and some of his crew on a backcountry hiking adventure in Colorado, and they got to spend some time and talk, and really loved the work they're doing, really great organization. And, okay, so I think because I've had plant medicine experiences, I mean, for me personally, it's so personal, but I have seen that avatar version of reality where life is a living, breathing entity,
mhm,
whether, there is intelligence, there is consciousness, and there is a book called The Life of Trees that actually Dave Baronio got me connected with, and it is about how trees communicate,
yes.
how mycelium communicates, how these networks will actually warn one another of things happening. There is absolute consciousness
Water has
in
memory.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at Dr. Emoto's work of prayer held over water, you can actually change the actual structure of water based off intention and prayer. You can and so if you think about how I actually teach this in my aliveness courses, if you have a glass of water and you're holding that water and you're just swearing and you're pissed and you're angry and you're throwing all this stuff out, that water is actually adjusting to all of these things that are coming through you because it's been shown in the molecules. Literally, if you break this down, if you bless your water with like love,
Mhm,
and here's to my body's health, here's to the waters of life, here's to my internal waters, and here's to the love of all that is, and may I heal my body and heal the world through my energy. And you are speaking that to your water, it also changes and turns into this lovely snowflake looking cellular structure, where the hate words makes it look chaotic and dismantled into total
mhm,
chaos.
mhm,
And so we can actually organize through loving energy, intention, soulful words, soulful healing. And so if we think that a glass of water can be changed by that, what happens even with our internal waters? Because we're 70% water, and so the words we speak, the feelings we feel, that's all being affected. Our internal waters are also affected by our words, by our intentions, by prayer, by thoughts, by all these things. Now, we can also go to this is why I actually really think it's a beautiful thing to hold some sort of prayer or intent over your food. If a gardener pulls carrots from the ground and chops them up and makes me a beautiful salad, and I look at that salad before I eat it, and I take a moment to just have gratitude and presence and say, thank you for the life force. Because what it is life force. A carrot, in order to live and grow, has to have life force that comes from, the sun shines down and the chlorophyll's, involved. And there's like this scientific thing that happens for this thing to grow and thrive. We've seen what dead carrots in the store looks like that have been sitting on a shelf for weeks and driven in from, miles and miles away versus what a carrot looks like fresh out of the garden.
mhm,
One has life force, one is completely like deadened. When you eat this one, it has a totally different reaction to what those nutrients are doing for our body. It
mhm,
has life force, it has healing power, food has healing power, and I think totally the same of wild food, except I think it's even more interesting when we look at wild food because all right, here's my example
mhm,
because I talk about this in my classes. When you go out and you harvest wild dandelion leaves, and you add just a few dandelion leaves into your food, or wild salmon or wild elk. I mean, you name it, wild. It's There is a different quality of that food that has not been coddled. The difference between a lettuce that was grown under grow lights, protected under some sort of growing environment, like what do you call it, a greenhouse. This is a coddled plant that needed all of human to completely make its life come together, where these dandelion greens are like bad storm, no problem. Too much heat, no problem. Sun, like weather, snow, no problem. This thing continues to live and grow and provide sustenance and hearty sustenance, very different from the energy of the plant grown by human hands that needed to be coddled through every step of its life. This plant, the dandelion, is used to friction. And
Mm,
so, like heavy friction. This plant dies in a heartbeat if it's, like, gets too much sun,
yeah.
because if it's under the wrong conditions. So for me, I would love to add a little bit of wild food to my diet every day, a little bit, whether it doesn't need to be a lot because this is like the difference between a homeopathic versus, like, a medication. That homeopathic energy, that small amount of life force from that plant does a lot to our bodies
Mm,
because I believe we're taking on the life force of resilience of a plant that knows friction and is sturdy. And I think the same thing. I mean, if we're talking about a plant, but imagine you easily could imagine then think about a farmed salmon living
yeah.
farmed life, versus a wild salmon and what that fish is capable of in its lifespan. It's like extraordinary
Yeah.
life force.
Yeah.
And I would rather eat that than the farmed because I know I'm taking that energy on, that soul
Yeah.
energy, that essence. Now you take it up to big game animal, do I would prefer to eat wild game over cow. There's
Yeah.
just a different quality
Yeah.
to what the energy you're taking on. So do I believe everything has life force? Absolutely.
Mhm.
And actually science is proving that. So it's
Yeah.
not even out there to be like, yeah, with just check out mycelium, like look into that and see what's going on there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
I love how you said, friction. So because when you were talking about this, it brought up in my head the word grit.
Mm,
Wild food is gritty because
mhm.
of how it's had to survive and overcome. And if you are what you eat, which is what we've been told all our life,
Elementary.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you are what you eat,
Uh-huh.
then you wanna be a gritty human being, eat food that overcame, and you also are gonna be an overcomer.
Yeah, it's energy, and energy is actually transferable.
Mhm.
I mean, we know this because if someone walks into the room in a really bad mood, that affects us. We can feel it without even having touch to this human or a conversation. Like if someone walks in the room and they're in a bad mood and they're bad energy, it's transferable.
Yeah.
Like you feel it. This is very human common stuff.
Mhm.
When someone walks into the room with vibrance and, welcoming and warm and joyous, you are naturally like, I can feel that.
Yeah.
I like how that person feels when
Yeah.
they light up the room. I mean, that's an energy
Yeah.
transference, and it's very palatable to humanity, but how are we I mean, if that makes sense to people, okay, how is that different from wild food and energy and life force and transference? I mean, it's all from the same cellular process.
That's
So,
that's why in our household, we, do our best to eat organic and non-GMO because we don't want that fake synthetic life, right? We don't want synthetic in, you're gonna get synthetic out. We want that real
yeah.
hardiness. We want that organic, nature-driven grittiness, healing
Yeah.
properties.
And I mean, it goes all the way to farm rate, I would there's a reason to go organic or free range or conscious farming because I mean, I wouldn't wanna eat meat based off practices of those animals that are horrendous.
Mhm.
Like, I don't wanna eat the meat of an animal who's lived a horrendous life and in a slaughterhouse with 0 consciousness to the well-being of that animal.
Right.
I would way rather eat meat that I know the farm, I know how they take care of their animals, or they're wild, so they've lived a good their life has had, certain freedoms that they're not being held captive in something that's extraordinarily gross.
Man.
Who wants to eat that? I mean, we can also take that to just even the attitudes of people who make our food. This is something I talk about in my classes is that if I'm in a household and someone invites me to dinner and they are a loving household and there's music and there's joy and people are making food, and I'm never going to ask that person, is this organic? Because I'm not going to eat it if it's not. I am not that person. I welcome food when it is made for me, and I know that the love alchemy changes the story of where that food came from.
Because
And
love conquers
so
all.
absolutely, and so, that can go back. Some people are like, "Well, I can't afford, organic food, or I can't afford this." Okay, well, at the very least then, bless your food, have gratitude
Mm,
where that food came from, hold hands before you eat, have love in your heart while you eat, and give gratitude and thanks for that animal's life.
man.
And that love alchemy is a changing factor to then how it's received in our bodies, and the same goes through that if I would never want to be in an angry if I was in a fight with someone, I don't really fight it with anyone anymore, but if there was like anger energy or like fighting energy, that's not the best time to prepare food, and that's not the best time to share that food. It's like check yourself, get back and centered, and know that your alchemy, good or bad, is affecting that food.
Mm.
And so that's one reason I don't even like to eat out that much, is because I don't know what's happening in that kitchen, and sometimes if food doesn't digest well for me, it could be angry meals, angry food, resentful food where energy is everything. Our soul connection is everything, and I
Mhm.
do think these are powerful conversations. We went pretty deep here, but hey, you're the soul, you're
Well,
soul driven.
yeah,
This
I
is
mean,
this podcast, I think we can do that.
formerly known as Soulful Hunter, but now Soul
Yeah,
Seekers. But the whole idea is that we always talk about the soul, which is why I wanted to have you on here for an episode. I think we did a really good job of closing that circle of conversation, connecting the dots. Um, just real quick, you said fire is community, right? Like it's so community is so important because you've heard people say, well, it takes a village, right, to raise a child. it, we are blessed with skills, and not everyone has the exact same skill. That's what makes a marriage so powerful, right?
mhm,
The masculine and the feminine, the things that moms have versus dads have, men and women. And at the same time, you know, my tool collection is horrid, but my neighbor, his tool collection's phenomenal, and he, because we're in a good community with each other, he's able to support me where I'm lacking, and then hopefully I am able to bless him as well wherever he may need. And that I think is the whole purpose of humanity, right? Is
yeah,
to
that's holistic survival.
yeah, which
That's that we're here to see how can we contribute, how can we give more, how can we create healthy relationships with our neighbors,
yeah,
so that we're not doing this alone. We shouldn't have to buy absolutely everything and do absolutely everything. We should have networks of groups who contribute to the whole.
yeah, yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Well, with that being said, you have a lot going on. You've really grown Wildkind in the amount of time I've known you. What's on the future agenda? What are courses that people can sign up with for you? How do they get connected? All that.
Well, the big one is that day after tomorrow, Wildkind Outdoors got its first military contract, and actually, I will be co-facilitating an advanced wilderness survival for military special forces,
Wow!
and so
Congratulations.
woo woo as I get, I can also like rein it in and get into the hard skills of wilderness survival. So that was a huge moment, professional moment for me that Wildkind Outdoors has been established now as a leader in the outdoor industry, and really as taking on this training to get the special forces ready for deployment. So I actually have a co-facilitator that I've hired on for that, which is Joel Vanderloon, who
Oh,
you
he's
probably had on the
he's been
podcast.
on the podcast as well. Yeah.
Yep, he's a good friend of mine. We're here in Sisters, Oregon, and I knew he'd be the perfect person for this training. So him and I are co-facilitating that, and he'll really get into the hunting and teach them some of these tracking, hunting. We're going to get into trapping, fishing, slingshots. So we will be harvesting, harvesting food in that way, or the teachings around this. And then right after that, I head to Montana to teach wilderness survival for her outdoor journey at their Women's Outdoor Summit. So that's fabulous. And then I'm launching a women's year-long rewilding and leadership cohort that will start in the fall. And that is a year-long initiation into the real earth skills based practices, but also coming together as women to really start to build the voice and the leadership of community resilience, holistic survival, and rising to the occasion to say we are living in times that are going to require of us just strong voice, strong action to do this work and
Hmm.
to be the advocates for our connection with nature, and not just sitting and meditating in the woods, because hey, I'm totally into that too, but taking action, really embodied empowered action to be a part of the change of that's here, that's presenting itself, because we are in an unraveling of sorts, and just in terms of our, how our reliance on on the structure of this world. And I think everyone can see, like, look, it's actually time to stand up and get very strong in our ability to know human skills.
Hmm.
And we've seen it through natural disasters, major natural disasters that have come through and have displaced people, brought that sense of vulnerability. And so it's going to be a women's group who is going to kind of grow that empowerment together, and how we're going to help others in our communities to have these conversations, to gather together, to around fires together, to share stories, to bring in our elders, to bring in our young people, so that we're doing life in a different way. I mean, like old ways versus modern ways, and we got to somehow find that balance, because we're out of balance for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, totally.
Um, yeah, and then the nonprofit is launching this month of August, actually, Wildkind Academy, which will be a rewilding and leadership school for youth and teens. So lots happening, and I'll be
Wow.
working with public schools, coming in and doing one-day workshops, getting kids out of the classroom and having them work with knives and fire, and building out shelters, and talking about resilience, and building their own resilience bag, and taking responsibility for their well-being and for their resources. So it's epic. Like, epic things are happening right now.
No, congratulations. It how so the courses that you're offering for the most part right now are all female driven, correct? Like,
No.
no, so either sex could sign up.
Yeah, yeah, because I go back to Colorado end of August and facilitating a 2-day wilderness survival training and backcountry hiking adventure for men and women. In fact, we've got 8 men enrolled and 1 woman. 9 men enrolled and 1 woman. So, I do a lot of co-ed work. I'm taking, private groups like military, corporate groups, and groups who just wanna get together and say, "Hey, we've got a community of people." I mean, I've gone all over the country where it's like, "Come to New York, come to Texas, come here, come there, work with us. We wanna build out a skills training. We wanna do a weekend rewilding." And so that's I work with men, I work with women, but the women's leadership cohort, that specifically is dialed in for women.
Awesome. So all the men listening to this podcast, hopefully you got something out of it. Share it with your wife, or if you have daughters or something like that, and share it with
Absolutely,
the women in
yeah.
your life. I love that. Jess, you're amazing. You're a beautiful
Aw, thanks,
soul. Really
Johnny.
proud of
Thank
you.
you.
It's inspiring to see how you are creating and not just being a
Yeah.
consumer. Congratulations on all your
Finding my
success.
balance, finding
Yes.
my balance, yeah. Thank you so much for welcoming me on to your podcast again. I love that you're doing this great work in the world. You are a voice, an amplifier. You are bringing community together in your unique ways. You are amplifying messages of change and hope and, resilience, and, the message through hunting. Everything you're doing is a powerful, powerful amplification needed at this time. So thank you for your contribution and for seeing me, and welcoming me into this space too.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You're amazing. Everybody, if you are interested in finding out more about Jess and everything she's doing, go to wildkindoutdoors.com and go check out everything that she's doing, whether it's her leadership cohorts, courses, retreats. Get connected with her. Follow along. She's an inspiring individual, and we know because we've shared this on the podcast multiple times that inspired people inspire people.
Oh, thank you. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, I have a free download that is a full checklist on how to make your own resilience bag. I've thought of everything. It's massive. And so call it a bug out bag, call it your emergency kit. I call it a resilience bag, but it's everything you need to build it out if you don't already have one set for yourself and for your family.
I love that. Perfect way to take the fear-driven mentality and turn it into a love-driven mentality.
Thank you. Yeah,
Really powerful.
for sure.
Guys, remember that if you want hunting to last for generations to come, you got to invest in the hearts and lives of other people. It's up to us to be the change we want to see in the world. And not everyone needs to be hunters, but everyone needs to be supportive of hunting because that is a part of who we are at the core of our humanity. As Jess said, make sure to do everything in love and do everything in blessings. And remember that your attitude and the attitudes of others affect everything, and we want to be cognizant of that so that we make good choices and we live a life that's blessed. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you want to bless soul seekers, make sure to share this podcast, leave a comment, rating, review, subscribe, whatever you do. Go check out season 5 of Soul Seekers, the show on Carbon TV right now. That is going on, and be blessed. Also, be on the lookout. We're going to be giving away a Timney trigger here in the month of August on Instagram. So if you're not following along on Instagram at Soul Seekers Nation, go do so because you're going to get a Timney trigger of your choice. We're going to be launching that here pretty soon. Be on the lookout. For Johnny Mack here at Soul Seekers and Jess Caldwell at Wildkind, be blessed, everybody. Freedom on. And as always, stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship as conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure.